Good afternoon. Okay, question of the day. Um, if you're about to file for Social Security disability because you have some really grave disabilities, I'm going to give an example. Let's say you were in a catastrophic car accident, many broken bones. You're out of the hospital. You've been out for a few months. You're going through rigorous physical therapy and rehabilitation, but you are at home. Maybe it's 6 months in now. You have literally run out of savings and you have a mortgage to pay and electric to pay for and all these other things. What to do? Can you, or what is the risk of going back to work? Well, the big question is, can you go back to work full time? Let's say you think you might have an opportunity to work an unusual job, or just kind of like you stepped in it in a good way. And you might be able to do something. Let's say it was something from home, or that you could manage with a special schedule and all these other great little accommodations, but you're going to be working full time. What will that do to your case? Well, it really depends. If you do that before you file, they cannot take an application and send it on for a medical workup, because you get denied at step one. I think it is the person working SGA, and you are. And that would be one of the questions that they're going to get the answer to in the application. So if you've already started, you have to tell them that you're working. And later on, it comes up, several weeks later when they send you a work history report where you're reiterating some of your work history up to and including the current job. So if you are about to file and you start working before you file, they won't likely take your application. And then what you can do is, if you do work and when you stop working, if that happens because of disabilities, you can, file for disability at the time. I should also add, it's not just if it stops because of your disabilities. Let's say it's the kind of job that doesn't exist in substantial numbers, but it was special and you got it and the job ended. Maybe it was temporary, maybe that company closed down, whatever the case may be. So you were able to do that job, but that job doesn't exist anywhere else. And you continue to be unable to do any of those other 12,000 jobs out there full time. Okay. Either way, once you stop working that full time, you can apply. Now, let's say you applied and then you got this job. So that's going to really depend on what stage it is. Have they gotten it past the stage where they shoot it over to the state agency, the DDS, for the medical workup? If that's the case, you've had an application taken. So if the DDS then asks you for a function of work history report, or finds out that you are working full time in other ways, which they will, or they will at some point, if they do it at that stage because you didn't tell them, or if you did tell them, they will have to deny you because you're working SGA at that time, right? However, the difference is the application has been taken. You will get denied, and now you have an appeal opportunity should you want it. Now, let's say you're still working, but you think it's really tenuous and you don't think you're going to be able to continue, and it's been 4 months. If you think you're going to stop shortly, or even if you're not sure, you get that denial on initial because you're working and they found out about it, like maybe you just started or whatever. You can appeal that, and it could be that by the time they're re-looking at it a few months later, several weeks later, you're no longer working, because our disabilities sometimes make those work attempts very temporary. And then that same claim that you started 6 months ago or whenever can continue. And then, of course, it's going to be known that you did work and make some income. But what happens with that? That can be argued as a failed work attempt, so that it doesn't impede, the track your case is going on now that the application was taken. You have all these appeal rights. So you would appeal and say, but I am disabled. And then, of course, then you stopped working and it never lasted 6 months. It was not a successful work attempt if it didn't last 6 months. And let's say you're on reconsideration now and you're not working. They can look at everything and they can actually consider whether you are disabled from your medical records. Whereas before, once they found out you were working full-time SGA, they had to halt the process. If you're still working and you go you're in recon, they find out you're still working, or maybe that's when you started, but they find out that you're currently working SGA full time, they're going to have to deny you. And then you can, again, appeal for an ALJ hearing because you might not make it to 6 months. And if you don't make it for 6 months and we're at the hearing, we know what we're doing. We argue a failed work attempt and we explain why. And presumably while you were working, you were still communicating with your doctors and going to regular visits like you always did, telling them how the difficulties of pulling off that full-time job or even that part-time job that's earning SGA or any kind of job. So you always want it to be known about the difficulties. Don't be Superman or Superwoman at your doctor's office. Be very open about the difficulties of pulling down that income. Okay. And, we would argue to the ALJ that it was a failed work attempt. So if that is true, and the ALJ sees that the disabilities have continued and that you were trying to work, but then it couldn't last long because of your disabilities, he can award you all the way back to that original onset date. And all those months that you worked in between, assuming they're, found to be failed work attempts, they're not going to interfere with your case. You're still going to get your disability benefits for those months, and you don't have to pay back the income that you got, that you earned, even though it was SGA. So there can be reasons to keep that application going if the timing fits. If you are working full-time or SGA at the time of your hearing, the judge is generally going to have to deny you too, because again, the sequential process, I'll do a video on it. I'm sure they're out there though. The first one is the person working SGA? If they are, case ended. They're not disabled under the rules because it's only for people who are not able to work SGA. Okay. So that is what you want to consider. And again, if you temporarily can work and you do, and you pull in some money and it could save your mortgage, it could save, it can really be something that you need to do until you figure out a better way to downsize. Sometimes people sell their homes, sometimes they'll rent them out and go live with, brother John, they can get a ton of money renting their house and they can, pay their way with brother John. Then they get their disability, then they can actually move back into their house or not, whatever they want to do. But, just doing a little bit of planning and knowing what's going to make your case get disabled and whether or not you can appeal that disability because the job might fail, a failed work attempt, is really important to know. And if, of course, one thing I want to bring up is a closed period of disability. If you are found to have had a successful work attempt and it shoots down the case for still being disabled, if you were disabled for 12 months, that's part of your alleged date and forward, and you never went back to work till say month 15, you could amend your claim. And when you get to hearing, say, Judge, can I amend this to a closed period? I am back to work now. Or I did succeed in 8 months of work. And I understand that's a successful work attempt, but I was not able to do that and didn't do that for those first 14 months. And you could see that I was in a wheelchair or on crutches, and, there's no job I could have done full time that exists in substantial numbers at that time. So there's all sorts of ways to skin the cat, but you need to know about these things so that you can make a choice as to whether to apply now or wait. And if you are going to try to go back to work, that's great. You might want to wait till after you apply for that one reason I was talking about. And that would be more so if you're like really running out of money and you need to go back to work ASAP, you don't have a choice. You might just have to do it. But then again, know that your case is going to be halted at step one. Okay. Because it never really gets out the gate, so to speak. If you start the job after you apply, then you can apply. All right. Hope that helps. And of course, if you're working under SGA, you can always apply. There's certain rules that you're going to want to try to follow on certain pieces of advice, but you're not going to be stopped from applying like you would be if you're currently making more than SGA, excuse me, or full-time, of course. All right. Ciao for now. I hope that's helping. Bye.